Hey there, my name is Cole Adams, and you are watching the best college basketball podcast out there that covers the entire sport of college basketball, brackets, bubbles, and bid stealers. Now, here are your hosts, Sam Fetterman and Jonathan Lidskin.
Season 6, episode 16 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers. I am Sam Fetterman. That is Jonathan Lidskin. Jonathan, late night show. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Sam. Third episode of the day. I know you're watching some baseball and hockey there. Yeah, these are getting fun. We're in a groove here. We had Houston and Dayton earlier, and now Baylor here.
Jonathan, would you like to introduce our guest?
Yeah, Ashley Hodge joining us tonight from S6E16. Ashley, you're the co-founder, right?
Yeah, I'm one of the owners and really probably the main voice when it comes to basketball. So I'm all in on hoops and ready to talk some hoops with you guys.
Yeah, let's get started. Sam, you want to take us away?
And we're ready to talk about hoops with anybody who wants to talk about hoops. We had Parker Ainsworth from the Locked On Cougs pod today, and he was like, nice. I'm just glad someone wants to talk about hoops in June. And here we are talking about hoops once again. We'll have more tip-off talks coming up probably next week. Probably nothing for the rest of this week, but we'll have some next week. The Baylor Bears. We have had discussions on this podcast about Scott Drew kind of losing his fastball in terms of the brain drain of the assistant coaches, and the teams just haven't felt as good over the last couple of years. They just haven't felt as threatening. This year's team felt like it was built a little bit differently. You start off getting a bunch of transfers that I'm not like 100% sold on all of them, but I do think there's a way that it really works out. And I think the place where I want to start with this is that combination of Obi Ogbeam and Dan Skillings. You get a guy who's one of the better shot creators, one of the better offensive players, scorers in the Mountain West. And then you get a guy who was a winner, was a high-level winner in high school and now has been a high-level defender for a high-level defensive program for 3 years in college basketball.
Yeah, I really like this roster. It's easy to drink the Kool-Aid this time of year before you actually have adversity and play real teams. Baylor's going to get some tests early this summer because they're representing the United States in the World University Games. And so they're hitting the ground running with practice. I watched their practice today. They've got to play the best teams in the world for the under I think it's the under 19 age group mainly, and they let a college team represent the U.S. So it'll be interesting, and some of Baylor's better players like Tunde Yesufu won't be playing in that game. Michael Ratai, one of their top transfers from Oregon State, is actually going to be playing for the German team. So I guess it wouldn't be just under 19. I think it's under 22 year olds. But anyway, it's they're going to get some good tests this summer in Germany, and we'll know what they have earlier than maybe some teams. We'll know that earlier than some of their opponents, other peers. But I like it. It's a long wingspan team, a lot of length, a lot of rebounding. Scott Drew teams have historically been great offensive rebounding teams, great on offense in general. The defense has been up and down. For a period of 3 years when they had Davion Mitchell, Mark Vital, it was really good. And then the year after that, it was really good. But then aside from that, mostly defense as well outside the top 25. But they made a key addition to the staff, Ron Sanchez from Virginia. And I think he's a guy that's going to make a huge impact on the defense. He was with Tony Bennett at Washington State in Virginia, and he was there for 9 top 10 defenses in the Tony Bennett era. So he's going to be in charge of the defense with Jared Nunes, and I think you'll see a much better product defensively as a result.
Back to the Ogbeam and Skillings duo in the backcourt. You're getting two guys that do completely different things.
Right.
We'll get to Yesufu in a moment, but I loved what I saw from Obi at Wyoming last year. That was not a team that was incredibly fun to watch. They did not have a ton offensively outside of him, but Obi was so good. He was one of the best scorers in that conference. Kind of felt like he passed out of necessity, though, and it feels like he's going to be this team's point guard. So what can we expect from him as a playmaker to play off of his scoring? Have we seen you said you just saw them practice today. Has there been growth in that department? Or and obviously, are we looking at him as this team's go-to offensive player?
I don't think he's going to be the team's go-to offensive player. I think they really have a balanced team from a scoring perspective. My guess would be there's probably 6 players that could average double digits. Not all of them will, but Skillings would be one of those. Agben will be one of those. Ratai will be one of those. Yesufu, Cam Carr from Tennessee. He looked like the best athlete on the court today, to my eyes. And then who am I leaving out?
JJ White.
JJ White. Yeah, JJ White probably would be the point guard. I was really impressed with Caden Powell from Rice. A lot better than I expected. He's a very skilled big, probably the most skilled big I've seen at Baylor in a long time, outside of Yves Missy was terrific, obviously. But, you have to go back quite a few years, maybe to Jonathan Motley to remember a big as skilled as Caden Powell is. So, I'm pretty optimistic on what Baylor has, just from how the pieces fit together. But, they don't have that superstar go-to guy. Maybe Tunde will be that. He's certainly expected to be a lottery pick. He might develop into that, but you hate to rely on freshmen to be that, to carry you there. But I think it'll be a balanced scoring approach, and I think Agben will certainly be one of those guys, and Skillings as well.
Jonathan, I want to talk about Tunde. Yes, this is one of my favorite freshmen in the draft. In this class, I haven't ranked very many of them, but he is one that I have. He is in my top 6. This is a player that I was super impressed with at Hoop Summit. Looks like a guy that can just come in and immediately make an impact on both ends of the floor. Jonathan, I know you've watched him a lot more than me.
Yeah.
How do you think he compares to Edgecombe, what he did last year, and where do you think he stands as a freshman in this conference and around the country?
Well, he's probably not as athletic as VJ Edgecombe, but nobody is. Like, that VJ is obviously a guy that was an athletic freak, and that was his best trait. I think the special thing about Tunde is his mentality, honestly. Like, he just plays so damn hard every time I watch him on a basketball court. And he's pretty skilled as well. Like, does some good things getting to the rim and creating advantages. Jump shots not bad in my opinion, but there's some room for improvement there. But what I think that you like from him is he's not like a freshman that is going to come in and really specializes in one thing and has to come a long way with some of his other traits. Like, he's going to come in, he'll be a pretty well-rounded player, and he'll play both ends of the floor.
Ashley, do you have anything to add on Yesufu?
Yeah, I would echo what Jonathan said. I think his best skill is his motor. He just plays with an incredible tenacity that you don't see freshmen play with. And on the defensive side of the ball, too. At practice today, he took coaching really well, hard coaching really well. He wants to get better. He wants to be great. He plays hard. The first minute of practice, he plays hard. The third hour of practice. I mean, he's a guy that just gets after it and with a real intentionality. I think the coaches love what they see in him so far. He's going to be raw. He's going to make some turnovers. He's going to force the issue. He's got to learn to play with some pace. He's a bit of a bull in a china shop right now, but give me that over timid and unassertive any day. So. I think you can learn from those mistakes when you err on the side of aggressiveness.
Yesufu is the type of guy that when he goes on the court, he's going to get where he wants and when he wants. And physically super developed for a 19-year-old. Yes, he's 19, so he's going to be an older freshman. Probably could have been a freshman. Probably could have been a much younger freshman last year. So he's going to be one of the oldest freshmen. That is a true freshman in the Big 12. He's a guy that is 6'5", 210. I would not be surprised if he's up to 215, 220 at some point. And toned too. Like, it's not there's not an unathletic bone in his body. even though he's not quite Edgecombe athletically. He's functional, and he's intentional on the court, and I think that's the thing about him. Very intentional movements, gets to his spots. Not, as Jonathan said, not the best jump shooter, but I think that he'll get to the rim. Like, he's going to get to the rim. He's going to get to the line. He's going to command the ball in his hands. It's just, is the shot going to be there enough? Is he going to be able to take care of the basketball enough to be able to demand a 22, 23% usage rate instead of 18, 19? And that's kind of what we'll have to see. And that's probably a little bit of a ceiling differentiator for this Baylor ball club. You're out.
Yeah, I think, Cam Carr is a wild card for Baylor. I mentioned it earlier that I thought he was the best athlete today. He can shoot the three really well. Like, he's capable of making multiple threes a game. He's 7'2" wingspan guy, 6'5", was a top 50 recruit, went to Tennessee, was expected to play quite a bit at Tennessee, transferred. I don't know the reasons, all the reasons why he decided to transfer. But I would say if Cam is what they hope he will be, then it takes a little bit of the scoring load off of Tunde. Skillings, I don't know exactly, what his potential is as a scorer. I think you're looking to him for other things: defense, leadership, rebounding, playmaking. But hopefully he can be in the 8 to 12 points per game range for Baylor. But yeah, Tunde, if Cam Carr can get close to double figures, then I think Tunde won't have as much pressure to score. But if Cam doesn't do that, then Tunde is going to have to deliver from the scoring side of things. I think Obi Agbim and Michael Ratai, it might be the two best candidates to lead the Bears in scoring, but I would say Tunde is probably a close third there.
Jonathan, you were a big Cam Carr guy coming out of high school, and I was too. We haven't seen any of him yet at the college level. Are you still in on Cam Carr?
Yeah, I am. So I saw him play when he was at Link Academy, like very randomly. They played in an event at University of Missouri, like a shootout event. And he was the best player on the floor against SoCal Academy in a game that obviously included a ton of D1 players between a couple of prep schools. AJ Johnson's playing in the NBA now, and Cam was better.
I still don't know how, by the way.
and Cam was better than him in that game. Yeah, kind of like Ashley mentioned, like the athleticism and length with him are pretty eye-popping. And when you add in the fact that he is a pretty good shooter, you have a serious player here. Now, what happened at Tennessee? Anybody's guess at this point. I thought he was a great fit for that program when he committed there, but I think for what Baylor's trying to do this year with this roster, it's an excellent fit, and I definitely wouldn't rule it out for him being one of their better players.
Yeah, I mean, what I witnessed today, now he may be better conditioned than the guys that just came. He's the only player on the roster that's a holdover. They thought they were going to have Rob Wright, and obviously Rob Wright went to BYU after having a signed NIL.
A lot of money.
I think they did some sprint drills today, and not only was he faster than everyone, he was significantly faster than everyone. And Dan Skillings is a hell of an athlete, and Tunde is a heck of an athlete. So I think that just speaks to what a freak athlete Cam Carr is, and he's got bounce. Like, he can elevate with his vertical, long wingspan, like I mentioned. Very, very good jump shooter. I think the question with him is body toughness. Will he be able to take the pounding that the Big 12 is gonna certainly dish out? Hopefully, the answer is yes. He's now in his third year of college, even though he hasn't played much, but he's had some weight training, and I think he knows what's in store for him. But I think Baylor's expecting big things from him.
I do want to talk a little bit about Ratai, because this is a guy that intrigues basically everyone in the basketball space as a player. 6'9" with that type of skill. I was impressed with him whenever I watched Oregon State as a guy that I just thought had a super high ceiling as a player. And I think a lot of people I think I was listening to the No Ceilings draft podcast, and this was a guy that they've been discussing because he's got playmaking feel, he's got a jump shot, he gets to the line, but the turnovers are a problem. I think that that's not exactly a problem if he doesn't have the ball in his hands quite as much, but I think he can be a really, really good kind of offensive foreman. If they give him like maybe not the power wing archetype, but like the big wing archetype, where they want him to do a little more simple stuff with the ball in his hands and a little more off ball movement. So I think that he'll make a really interesting piece for this team.
Yeah, he was there today. He didn't practice. He just graduated from Oregon State, and he was dual enrolled at Baylor, taking online courses at Baylor while he was graduating from Oregon State. But he's going to start practicing with them tomorrow. But I think they're expecting him to be, certainly their key playmaker in the front court. He's a guy. They have a couple of these guys, J.J. White and Obi Agbem would fit this bill, and Caden Powell, that have just gotten better every year in college. They come out of high school. They're not really, guys that, hit any radar for any Division I teams. But by the time they're seniors, they become pretty polished, players. And
sorry,
and that's all right. and the thing that really stands out as I watched some of his games last year was he had 29 points in a win against Gonzaga, which was a big win for Oregon State. So he's done it against good competition. He plays with a tremendous pace, gets to the foul line a lot, mature player. Skill, not the best athlete, more of a below the rim type of player, but he's very strong. So, I think he's going to be a really important cog for Drew's offense. May run a lot of things through him. It's going to be more point guard by committee. My guess is J.J. White's going to be the starting point guard, and Obi Agbem will play off of him. But that's to be determined. It's the way things are going with basketball now. You just want to get the ball in your hands of your best players and let them play make. And whether that's Ratai, whether it's Tunde, whether it's Agbem, whether it's Cam Carr, it remains to be seen. We'll know soon.
Jonathan, anything to add on Ratai?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because you kind of Ratai's more of like the skilled offensive player for this team, and you have a backcourt full of guys that are really athletic and long. So I think that you're going to probably see Baylor do a lot of stuff with not just running stuff for him, but using him as kind of like the trigger man for guys to explode off the ball and make plays at the rim.
I also want to mention Jocelyn Bodo as a guy that they get from High Point, rebounding machine. Played deep drop coverage for High Point last year, was not part of a tremendous defense. Jonathan, if you recall, 227th in the country. Are you really going to pick a team that's 227th in defense to beat Purdue? I'm glad
they moved up to 226.
I'm glad you didn't pick them. But are we expecting Baylor to play that deep drop that he played at High Point? Are they trying to teach him a new defensive style?
To be determined. Jocelyn decided to try his hand at some ATVs this summer and broke his arm, so he's out for a little while. But it's an injury that I think will heal quickly. But the thing that stands out about him, 7'8" wingspan. He's defense player of the year in that conference 2 years in a row, I believe. And even though they, like you said, they weren't a great defense as a team.
Well, they were the best defense in that league, I think.
Okay, yeah, there you go. He's outstanding at offensive rebounding. His offensive rebounding percentage is like 19-20%. And to give Baylor fans that might be listening to this perspective, Norchad O'Meara was like at 15%. And Norchad missed a lot of his own shots and would get the me bounds, I guess you could say.
Offensive rebounding rate in the country for Bodo, and number 2 last season.
Yeah. He's really good at that. So, that's key weapon for Scott Drew. You know, they've had some great offensive rebounders over the years. Rico Gathers, Jonathan Motley, certainly Norchad O'Meara, you know, fit right in with that. Mark Vital was
when I think about Baylor teams of the past, Bodo is the type of athlete that I think about in the front court.
Yeah.
Like, if I think about my childhood, you mentioned Gathers and Motley.
Yep.
Those two, like, without a doubt, come to mind. Obviously, like, it's not Yves Messier or Isaiah Austin levels of athleticism.
Right.
But it's this type of athlete that I feel Scott Drew made a lot of money on in the mid 2010s.
Yep.
And I think that it's a very good thing for Baylor to have him, even though I don't think he's that great of a defender at this level.
Yeah.
I think the offensive rebounding piece is going to make this team really go. And obviously, if Caden Powell can take a step up to this level and really make an impact, then you don't need Bodo to play 30 minutes a game like he did at High Point.
Right. Yeah, I just think at High Point, like, sure, like there are definitely some things he can improve on, but there was also just so much pressure on him. Like, basically, like, High Point's only chance of getting stops was like funneling guys to the rim against him. And, you know, when you're seeing that many paint touches over the course of a game in a season, like it's going to wear down on you. Yeah. And I think like with the roster that Baylor's built, there'll be a pretty good defense at the point of attack. And it'll definitely, like, at worst, give him some breaks.
Yeah, I think you'll see Baylor play the pack line defense. I mean, that's what Ron Sanchez has done all of his career. So he knows how to teach it. The proof has been in the pudding. They've been really good at it at Virginia and Washington State before that. So, I think it's going to be a different defensive philosophy than Baylor's had in the past.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you think about everything that Baylor was, and then you think about everything that the pack line is, and you don't think of the pack line and Baylor in the same sentence, really,
right? Like
that. But yeah, I think you get two guys in Skillings and Yesufu who are really good on that end of the floor. Obi and JJ White, I'm a little less confident about as defensive players. And JJ White, I'm honestly a little bit less confident about as an offensive player than Obi in terms of scaling up. I liked that Omaha team last year, but I just am not certain about his about the way that he scales. But Obi, I think, will scale at a high level, and then Ratai, I think, is kind of the piece that makes me think. And Ratai and Cam Carr are the two higher ceiling pieces that, like, I think are a little bit less defined what I think I know they're going to be, because can Ratai cut down on the turnovers and be that on the offensive side of the ball, or will he kind of just end up being more of that lower usage wing?
Right.
And if not, and if he is that, will he improve defensively? Because I didn't think he was great defensively last year at Oregon State. I thought a bunch of other guys were good defensively at Oregon State. I didn't think he was one of them. But Carr as another interesting piece. Anybody else that we haven't discussed that you want to mention, Ashley?
I think the one that will be in the rotation that we haven't talked about is Michael Perez. He's coming from Italy, and he was a late add to the Baylor team. I think Jonathan Gavoni has him as one of the top 20 international prospects out there. He's on some draft boards next year, late first round, early second round, drawing a lot of comparisons to Jeremy Sohan. Not a great shooter, but he does everything else well. He's one of those point forward types, and he's a little, bit of a below the rim player. Jeremy Sohan had more bounce than he does, but he's got a strong body. He's a really skilled passer. He's 6'8", 7-foot wingspan, plays a lot of point guard for the Italian national team. Was an all-star in the FIBA competition against guys like AJ DeBonsa and Boozer, and so I think he's a guy that Baylor's hoping will contribute heavily, and then maybe get an extra year of him before he goes off to the pros. But he's not there. He won't be there till August. So we won't get a real good look at him until later in the summer. But he's another guy they're expecting to play for sure.
Yeah, I was, and then just another name that I recognize on this roster. Just was kind of very surprised to see Mayo Soyoye end up at Baylor.
Yeah,
a Blair Academy guy. I know.
Yeah,
there were a couple high majors looking at him. Did not expect him to end up at Baylor. Did see him play a couple times in high school. Mostly was just fixated on how good Deron Rippey was. So.
I mean, he's probably going to redshirt, but he's a guy that I think will contribute heavily next year. Yeah, he plays with aggressiveness. Today he was blocking shots. He was dunking almost everything that got in his area, and just a little raw. He's a little raw, but yeah, Villanova offered him. Maryland offered him.
He didn't play until a couple years ago. I don't.
Right.
So that's there. Jonathan, anything else to add before we go?
I don't think so. I mean, like Isaac Williams, I don't know if we mentioned him. He's here too. I could see him getting a couple minutes. I believe he was hurt last year at Corpus Christi, but like the numbers indicate that Corpus Christi was a better team when he was on the floor.
Tough kid, plays hard. Like he's a dog on defense.
Was he committed somewhere else at some point this offseason?
Don't think so.
Not that I remember.
I mean, his shooting numbers are abysmal. I think he shot 40-something% from the free throw line, maybe 17% from three. So he needs to work on his shooting, but he's a guy that gets to the rim. He's got a strong body. I'm not comparing anybody to Davion Mitchell because Davion Mitchell is a one-of-one when it comes to defense, but he's got those type of big body, desire to be a great defender. He gave everyone that he covered today fits in practice. I mean, he's a tough kid, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, he might redshirt, but I would not be surprised at all if he cracks into the rotation because he's just such a competitor. He's got the it factor when it comes to. It just seems like his team won today. It didn't matter which team he got put on; they won. So there's a lot to be said for that. Just a guy that wins and finds a way to get things done. And he's that type of player. He kind of reminds me of Shindell Weaver at Texas. If you ever watched him.
Yeah.
Ashley, what are Baylor fans hoping for this year? What is the definition of a successful season?
Well, I think making the tournament and with a chance to make a run in the tournament. That's kind of the standard that Baylor set. They expect that. I think they're going to be picked, middle of the road in the Big 12, but I actually think this is a more complete team than last year's team. Last year's team went with a top-heavy approach. Norchad Amir, VJ Edgecombe, Jeremy Roach. The guy that had some key injuries. They were counting on Langston Love, a guy that was often injured, to really be injury-free, and that didn't happen. So yeah, I think they have a much deeper team this year, a much longer, defensive-minded team, and I think the defense will be significantly better. So my expectations are a top 4 finish in the Big 12 somehow, some way, and they will make it past the first weekend in the NCAA tournament.
All right, Jonathan, you want to take us home?
Yeah, if you came to hear about Tyler Self and where he's working, you came to the right place. If you came to hear Sam yelling about Cal Raleigh hitting a grand slam, you came to the right place. And if you came to hear about the latest happenings with Caleb Grill, you came to the right place. This has been Season 6, Episode 16 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers, our Baylor preview. Thank you so much to Ashley for joining us, and we'll see you next time.